Frank slid the manila folder across the table and left his hand on top of it like he was giving me one last chance to change my mind. I didn't take it. He lifted his hand. I opened the folder. The first photo showed Jessica's car in a hotel parking lot. Red Honda, license plate clear. Second photo. Her walking toward the entrance next to a man in a polo shirt. Third, the two of them at the front desk. Fourth, his hand on her lower back as they turned toward the hallway. I stared at that one longer than I needed to. Frank sipped his coffee and didn't say anything. Good. I didn't need commentary. There were more. A wider shot of the parking lot with a timestamp, 7:47 p.m., last Thursday. The night she'd told me class ran late and she'd grabbed dinner near campus. Another shot from a different angle, later, 10:13 p.m., both of them leaving separately. Him first, her 9 minutes later. I closed the folder and set it down like it might break. "You okay?" Frank asked. "Yeah," I said. I wasn't. But what was he going to do about it? The whole thing had started with a parking ticket. 6 weeks ago, maybe 7, I'd grabbed the mail and there it was, issued 2 towns over on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd asked her about it that night. Casual, no edge to it, and she'd laughed it off. Said she'd gone to grab lunch with a friend and lost track of time at a meter. Made sense. I didn't think about it again until the night classes started. She'd mentioned them over dinner like it was no big deal. Business communications, twice a week, something her boss recommended for a promotion track she'd never talked about before. I'd said it sounded good. She'd smiled and thanked me for being supportive. That was 5 weeks ago. At first, it was just Tuesdays and Thursdays. Then some Thursdays turned into Fridays. A couple of Saturdays got added when she said they had group projects. She started dressing a little sharper on class nights. New jeans. A different perfume I didn't recognize but didn't ask about because I didn't want to sound like that guy. Then last week I'd been putting away laundry and found a second parking ticket in her coat pocket. Same town, same block. A Wednesday this time, not a class night. I'd stood there in the bedroom holding it, trying to make it make sense. It didn't, so I called Frank. He's a PI a buddy from work had used during his divorce. Does surveillance, background checks, the ugly stuff people don't want to do themselves. I told him I needed to know where my wife was going on Tuesday and Thursday nights, and I needed her not to know I was asking. He'd said he'd have something in a week. He'd called me this morning. Now I was sitting in a diner booth with photos of my wife, walking into a hotel with a man whose face I didn't recognize, and Frank was asking if I wanted cream for my coffee like this was a normal fucking Tuesday. Does she know? I asked. That you hired me? Frank said. That anyone's watching. Frank shook his head. No. You're sure? I'm sure, he said, holding my eyes so I'd believe it. I nodded. Took a breath. Let it out slow. Jessica thought she was getting away with it. That was something. Not much, but something. I need to know who he is, I said. I'll have it by tomorrow, Frank answered. Tonight. He looked at me for a second, then nodded. Tonight. I left the folder on the table and walked out. My hands didn't start shaking until I was back in the car. Frank texted me at 11 that night. Just an address. A diner 2 exits down from where we'd met that morning. I got there in 20 minutes. He was in the same booth. Different coffee, same look on his face like he'd seen this story 100 times, and it always ended the same way. He slid a printout across the table. No folder this time. Dean Callahan, 34, patrol officer, County Sheriff's Department, 9 years on the job, married, 2 kids. There was a photo clipped to the top. Looked like it came from a department website or a community newsletter. Him in uniform, smiling like he'd just helped a kid find his dog. I stared at it until the face matched the guy in the hotel photos. It did. He's a cop, I said. Frank nodded slowly, like he'd hoped I wouldn't notice. She's fucking a cop, I said, mostly to myself. Frank didn't answer. Didn't need to. I flipped the page. Marriage certificate, public record. Dean Callahan and Melissa Vance, married 8 years ago in the same county we all lived in. Another page. Property records, a house 15 minutes from mine. Another, his patrol schedule, pulled from a union newsletter that listed shift rotations by name. Tuesdays and Thursdays, he worked until 6. The hotels were always 7:30 or later. I set the papers down and rubbed my face. "You want me to keep tailing them?" Frank asked. "Not yet," I replied. "What do you need?" I tapped the marriage certificate. "I need to know if his wife knows." Frank raised an eyebrow. "You thinking about telling her?" "I'm thinking I want to know what I'm working with before I do anything else," I answered. He nodded slowly.